stop! What if I told you that Nazi Germany built a jet aircraft from wood, and it inspired the B-2 bomber 50 years later? Would you believe me? In 1945, the American Army raids a factory in Germany. What they encounter is a machine that defies all aviation rules, the Horten Ho 229. This aircraft was so ahead of its time that the technology used in it couldn't be understood even 50 years later. In the next 11 minutes, I'll tell you not just the story of this aircraft, but the mystery of a design that pushed the boundaries of engineering and was decades ahead of its time. And in the end, you'll understand this. Sometimes the greatest innovations are born from the greatest constraints. But first, let me tell you this. When you see the list of materials used in building this aircraft, you'll be shocked. Now close your eyes and think of a jet aircraft. What comes to mind? Probably shiny metal, steel, titanium, right? Now let me tell you this. The outer surface of the Horten Ho 229 was covered with plywood made from beech wood. Yes, you heard that right. Wood. But this wasn't a crazy idea. It was pure genius. In 1945, the world is burning, Germany is losing the war, and resources are running out. No aluminum, no high-quality steel, but one thing exists: wood. And the Horten brothers transformed this constraint into one of history's most radical aircraft designs. This aircraft was 9 feet 2 inches tall, had a wingspan of 55 feet 1 inch, and weighed only 11,000 pounds. For comparison, nearly the same weight as a modern F-16, without weapons and fuel. But here's what's really crazy. This wooden covering wasn't just lightweight and strong. It also formed the aerodynamic shape perfectly. Thin European beechwood layers were glued together, cut to variable thicknesses. And fire risk? The outer surface was painted with fire-resistant green paint, but these weren't just material choices. The real insanity was in the design itself. Here's a question for you. In 2025, which military aircraft still uses the tailless flying wing design? Answer: the B-2 Spirit bomber. And the Horten Ho 229 used this design in 1945. 50 years earlier. But now let's get to the real question. Why was this design so revolutionary? Because the Horten Ho 229 was one of the first jet aircraft to use the flying wing concept, where the fuselage and wings formed a single structure. Think about it. In a traditional aircraft, there's a fuselage, wings, and tail. Each causes air resistance. But what if we combined all these parts? What if it was just one giant wing? That was Horten's answer. This simple design provided greater lift, significantly reduced drag, improved maneuverability. Takeoff from shorter runways, approximately 100 meters. But there was a cost. There was no vertical stabilizer. What does this mean? The aircraft's risk of side slipping or flat spinning was very high. And the control system? It had to be completely reinvented. Instead of traditional ailerons and elevators, Horten used a system called elevons. Control surfaces at the wingtips provided both pitch and roll control. When both elevons raised, nose up. Both down, nose down. Opposite directions, roll. But this was just the beginning. Spoilers at the wingtips, increasing drag and reducing lift by disrupting airflow. Additional spoilers under the rear fuselage, stabilization at high speeds and during landing. And there were drag rudders, in pairs on the upper and lower wing surfaces. These provided yaw control. Emotional peak. 1. The human factor. All these control surfaces and the absence of computer assistance made this aircraft extremely difficult to fly. This problem could only be solved decades later, with computerized flight control systems. Now we come to the most striking part. How do you install jet engines in a wooden fuselage? Answer: very, very carefully. The Horten Ho 229 was equipped with 2 Junkers Jumo 004B2 engines. Each produced 8.9 kN, 2000 lbf of thrust at 8,700 RPM. These engines could propel the aircraft to 977 km/h, nearly reaching the Luftwaffe's target of 999 km/h. Each engine, 3.86 meters long, 81 cm in diameter, 7.91 kg in weight, 8-stage axial compressor, 6 combustion chambers. But every innovation comes with a price. These engines were fuel-hungry, 1,300 liters per hour consumption, and they were prone to overheating. Visual irony too. Advanced technology, primitive materials. Even worse, due to wartime shortages of high-quality alloys, low-grade steel was used in the turbines. The service life of these engines was only 20 hours. 20 hours. A modern jet engine's lifespan is thousands of hours. But in 1945, 20 hours was a luxury. The fuel system consisted of 8 aluminum tanks, 4 in each wing, with a total capacity of approximately 2,000 liters. Fuel pumps used J2 synthetic fuel, made from brown coal. Metal air intake cowlings were hammered over the wooden leading edges, while steel exhaust panels protected the structure from heat. Now let's get to the most important question for a fighter aircraft. How does it fight? The Horten Ho 229 was designed to carry two 30mm caliber Mk-103 or Mk-108 cannons. Mk-103 fired 380 high explosive or 420 armor-piercing rounds per minute. Mk-108 was more effective against bombers. Ammunition capacity was probably around 200 rounds for 2 cannons, with a belt feed system similar to the Me-262. The aircraft could also carry 2 500-kilo bombs, but this would increase drag and weight. But the captured prototype was unarmed. Why? Probably due to shortages or incomplete construction. Because Germany was losing the war and time was running out. Now imagine yourself in that cockpit. A single-seat cockpit with a curved canopy providing clear rear visibility. The canopy had 2 parts, a fixed windscreen and a sliding rear section. In front of the pilot, the main panel, ignition, airspeed, vertical speed indicators, fuel gauges, flap position, altitude, compass meters, separate fuel indicator for each wing. Also in the cockpit, direction finder, engine RPM and temperature gauges, oxygen indicators, gear, position lights, fuel, spoiler, brake, and parachute deployment levers. On the right side, circuit breakers, communication controls, emergency canopy handle, and ejection seat lever. Emotional peak 2, takeoff procedure. Takeoff procedure based on similar German jets. Turn on battery, inverter. And generators. Check throttles. Prime engines start ignition at 800 RPM. Fuel flow begins around 1800 RPM. Lower flaps, steer with toe brakes. At 150 km/h, pull the control stick. 11s raise, aircraft lifts off. After takeoff, brake wheels, retract landing gear, close inner doors for smooth aerodynamic profile. The flying wing design provided lower wing loading, increasing lift and reducing stall speed. Estimated cruise speed, 632 km/h. Maximum speed, 977 km/h. This made it faster than the American P-51D Mustang and British Spitfire. But now we come to the biggest legend. Was the Horten Ho 229 truly invisible? The aircraft's sleek, futuristic shape sparked rumors that it was stealthy. Its smooth surfaces and lack of sharp angles were thought to reduce radar reflection. Reimar Horten later claimed he planned to add a charcoal coating to enhance radar absorption. Proof point, modern test. In 2008, Northrop Grumman and National Geographic built a replica to test this. The results were surprising. The design wasn't truly stealth by modern standards. However, it was shown that its radar signature was smaller than typical World War II aircraft. So no, the Horten Ho 229 wasn't stealth in the modern sense. But its speed, maneuverability, and advanced aerodynamics made it a remarkable example of early jet innovation. It was far ahead of its time, but the war's end halted its development. Only 2 prototypes flew. The aircraft never saw combat. The first operational flying wing, without vertical stabilizers, came more than 50 years later. The B-2 bomber. The surviving Ho 229 V3 prototype is preserved today at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. Micro Cliffhanger 3 7G Test. One final detail. The Horten was designed to withstand 7 Gs, but tests suggested it could endure up to 12.6 Gs. This would likely kill the pilot. Landing speed was approximately 156 km/h, and the aircraft used a drogue parachute to shorten landing distance. Let's recap. The Horten Ho 229 was a design made from wood and steel, powered by jet engines, 50 years ahead of its time. It was born from constraints, lack of resources, war pressure, desperation, but transformed into genius. It was never mass-produced, never saw combat, but its legacy still flies in the skies today. If this video taught you about one of aviation history's craziest projects, hit the like button. And if you want to see more technology stories ahead of their time, subscribe. Because in the next video, I'll tell you how close Nazi Germany came to a nuclear program. And trust me, that story is even more chilling. Tell me in the comments, should they rebuild and fly the Horten Ho 229 with today's technology? Until next time, look to the skies